How's it going, everybody? It's Pilot Family. We're back with another FPL video, and today we're going to be concluding our price prediction series for the 2022-23 FPL season price predictions. We're on the forwards this time, and we're going to see how things have they all come together based on how I would price things, what I think some of the players are going to come in at, and especially over my shoulder, Erling Haaland, what price am I going to be putting at, but what price is FPL probably going to be putting him at. Going to be two very different things, and you'll see my whole scheme now that we've seen every single position: goalkeepers, defenders, midfielders, and forwards. If you haven't done so already, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new or haven't done so already. It greatly helps out the channel, as well as turn those notification bells on so that you can get the content as soon as it is readily available. Drop us a follow over on Twitter so that you can keep up to date with any and all FPL news, from price changes to injury news and anything in between, as well as give us a follow over on Twitch so you can see when we go live for our preview and deadline streams. We will be also doing a FPL Reacts stream, as it were, when FPL does go live, which is probably going to be either sometime this week or next week based on past seasons. We might start to see some price reveals as well, so I'll be doing like batch videos for those as and when they arrive. So without further ado, let's talk about the forwards and see what prices I have them at and what I'm predicting FPL to price them at this season. So lastly, we are on to the forwards. We have them sorted, as we do, by first in the Premier League to 17th in the Premier League. We do not include any of the Bournemouth, Fulham, or Forest players, as we're just going off players from last season that are going to be in the Premier League this season. We will have individual videos for each team and talk about their FPL assets for our pre-season review of each team for transfers and what I think could be the best and worst FPL assets. So we'll dive more in depth on the teams that have just been promoted then and there. Also, you will notice that there will be either a green or a red block potentially next to one of the prices. The green block means I think the players should come in less than what I think the Premier League, Fantasy Premier League, is going to set their price at. So we use Julian Alvarez, who's newly signed for City over the summer. I think he's going to come in at the same price as Jesus did last season, which is 8.5 million as a forward. But I think they should price him at 7.5 million. And again, we will check those prices out when they do become available and see how many I got right, how many I got wrong. However, you will notice that there is an absolute sea of green. There's actually no forward that I would put more expensive than I think FPL is going to put them in at. And referring back to our strategy from our first video, which we outlined it there, I want the goalkeepers to come down slightly in price. I want defenders, center backs to be down slightly overall in price. I want fullbacks to be more expensive overall. I want premium midfielders to be expensive in their own right and should be based on how crucial they are to their team and their sheer output. So like as an example, Son, if you watched last video, I expect him to come in at around a 12 to 11.5 million mark. De Bruyne should be less than that because Son's going to score more goals than De Bruyne, which means more points. De Bruyne will probably get more bonus and potentially more assists, but overall Son's points should be higher, or you would think would be higher than the likes of De Bruyne just by the nature of his position. Forwards, I want their prices to come down significantly. And if you notice here, the highest forward price-wise that I have in the entire game is 10.5 million. Now, why is that? Well, if we're going to refer back to our midfielders table as well, this is what we put as our midfielder table. So De Bruyne, since we're starting on Man City, Sterling might be linked away to Chelsea. Again, I made this table almost 2 weeks ago, Monday now. So this is going to be a table that could be slightly outdated in terms of players that have come and gone, but we've gone through some key players. So like Mane is an example, someone who we know is going to Bayern Munich, certainly, if it hasn't already been announced by the time this video is released. But De Bruyne, I want to see him come in at 11 million. I think he'll come in at 12. But the reason being is because I want to see Erling Haaland cheaper than De Bruyne. Now, why? That just sounds crazy. Why would I pay more for De Bruyne? It's because he's a midfielder. He gets more points. He gets more bonus points for like just getting an assist because he's more involved in the play and he's more of the talismanic player. And I think that there shouldn't be a player in FPL in the forward slot more than 10.5 million. We saw how like poor the prices were overall for forwards in general. Let's make them more appealing this year, because we were just going to the point where we would have one cheap forward, be forced to play them, it would feel bad, and we'd have two 4.5 million forwards, which none of them play for their respective teams, on our bench. So I think they're going to price Haaland at like the 12 million mark. Wouldn't be shocked for 11.5 million, but I think that Haaland should come in at 10.5 million. I think he should be the same price as Harry Kane, who I also think should be 10.5 million, and I'll kind of reference the two of them, as I think they'll be the two highest scoring forwards in the game next season. And you can see that, whoa, that's way too much of a drop, of 1.5 million less. I mean, Kane would be 2 million less, because there's 12.5 million to start last season, than what he would be this season if we priced him there. But it's just to make give yourself a choice. So if we have Son as an example at 12 million here, which I think 12 million is a fair price for him. If Kane's 10.5 million on penalties, you can say, Kane scores less points per goal, but he could also potentially get those penalties. He could also match Son at that price. You want to have a decision. Whereas if Son's just 11 million and Kane's 12 million, you're just going to pick Son anyway. It just makes more sense, unless there's some switcheroo that you want to do between Kane to Haaland and back again, or something like that earlier on in the season. So that's kind of the wavelength we're going here. So you might be thinking my prices are going to be crazy, and they will be. That's why there's a lot of green blocks here. But there's also not many forwards in the game as well. So we want to make the most out of them. We want them to make them at least, where you think more than 5 seconds to say, they could actually be useful in my team. Diogo Jota was 7.5 million last season. I think that was too cheap for him personally. I think he'll come in at 8 million this season, but he will be a forward, and I think that's a fair price for him. I think that Diogo Jota should be around 8 million. If they don't put him as a forward, I expect him to come at 8 or 8.5 million as a midfielder. They did sign Darwin Nunez, who we don't have on this table. I expect him to probably come in as a forward. Do I expect him to come in at 9.5 million? Probably, but I would want him to be around the 8.5 million mark. Firmino, as an example, last season was 9 million. I expect him to drop down to 8 million. And I think he should be around 7 million. He should be cheaper. He's going to be second choice, so he should be cheaper than his counterpart, which is probably going to be the main three. Is now going to be Darwin Nunez through the middle, Diaz on the left, and Salah on the right, with Mane leaving and Jota and Firmino becoming more of the bench options. And then when Salah potentially could leave next season, then you can start to shuffle the lineup even more so. But for this season, that's how I want to see it. I expect them to be around the 8.5 million mark. Jota played a lot of games through the middle. Mane would have probably been a forward as well, looking back on it. So just one thing to look out for there. Romelu Lukaku came in at 11.5 million last season. His predicted price, I think he's going to be around 11, 10.5 million, somewhere in that mark. I've gone with 11. But my price, I think, make him super like, whoa, where's that price coming from if he stays in the Premier League? Go for 9.5 million. Remember, my most expensive forwards, my best forwards, are 10.5 million, and Lukaku's not near that, so he should be less than that, which is 9.5 million. If you look at Erling Haaland, I predict him to be 12 million. I predict Lukaku to be 11 million. The gap between those two is 1 million. The gap between the 10.5 and 9.5 is coincidentally 1 million. So I've gone with the same gap in between them. Just overall, they should be less. Timo Werner, I think, can either come in as a forward or a midfielder. I think it's a bit of a coin toss, but I think he should be around the 8 million mark. I expect him to come probably around 8.5, but I think 8 million will probably be fair, especially if he is a midfielder. If he's a forward, then probably 8 million is about right. If he's a midfielder, probably 8.5. But I expect him to probably still be a forward again. Kai Havertz definitely needs to be a forward. He played through the center in most games, especially when he was starting. There was a lot of people picking him for that particular reason. He was a player that was playing out of position. He was 8.5 million last season. I expect him to come around a similar price, but he's going to be a forward. In which case, I think he should be less. I think he should be 8 million, maybe even 7.5 as a forward, because it seems like Chelsea doesn't necessarily utilize that position as well. And will he be back up to Romelu Lukaku if Lukaku starts to find form? If he stays, who knows? It's a bit of a tricky one there, but I think Havertz will be around that 8 million mark, and I think he should be a forward as well. Nketiah for Arsenal recently signed a new deal as well. I made up these this price before he actually did sign that deal. I expect him to probably come in at around 7 million. I would like to see him at 6.5. I would like to see him at 6.5 because he's a forward. He should be cheaper than Bukayo Saka, who is playing game in, game out, and performing well. Therefore, 1.5 or 1 million, almost 1.5 million. 1 million because I think I put Saka at 7.5. If I did put him at 8, then it'd be 1.5 million. Let's double check. Bukayo Saka, I put him at 7.5 million. I think he'll come in at 8, but I think Nketiah should be 1 million cheaper than him as well. And we're also not sure if Arsenal are going to sign a striker. They did sign an attacking midfielder who's covered for Odegaard or potentially plays more of that role. We will see. Anthony Martial, again, should be a center forward. He played the few games that he did play for United through the middle. He played a couple games off the left, but I think when they don't play that many games, they just keep him in the same position. I think he should be 7.5 million. Put him at the same price as the likes of Callum Wilson and all of those guys because he's going to be understudy anyway to Ronaldo. And I think that Ronaldo should come in at 10 million. I expect the game to probably put him at 12 million, same price as Kane, who I think is going to be 12 million, as well as Erling Haaland are going to be 12 million. But that just makes it boring because you're not going to pick anyone but Erling Haaland in that situation unless Haaland's injured, in which case you're just going to pick Kane and you're just going to go down this pecking order. I don't expect United to potentially, given the signings that they don't have yet, be any better than last season. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. I still think Ronaldo should be less than the likes of Kane and Haaland. Those two guys are in the top 4. They're playing Champions League football. They are better forwards at the moment and play for better teams. Yes, Ronaldo scored more goals than Kane last season, but Ronaldo's in a team that's not playing well, and his price should be lowered. There's an argument to say that he should be the same price as Lukaku, and I would be genuinely happy if that did happen at 9.5 million. Mikel Antonio started off really well, came in at 7.5 million, but was not great for basically the latter 2/3 of the FPL season. Again, 7 million should be a good price for him. They might put him at the same price because of the start that he had. He's going to be a forward again, but I think 7 million make things a little bit on the interesting side. Make these premium forwards around 7.5, or not these mid-price forwards 7.5 million. Make them $500,000 cheaper than what they were. So a lot of these forwards came in at, we were all excited about Calvert-Lewin at 8 million, Bamford at 8 million. Drop them down by $500,000 or 1 million in the case of Antonio. Set the bar lower than the midfielders. Make the midfielders 7.5 or 8. Make the forwards 7 or 7.5, depending on the team that they play for. But like Callum Wilson, I think Antonio, they fit in that same sort of bracket. I would also probably put Jimenez in a similar bracket, maybe slightly less, just because of the team he plays for. And I think that you can see a much more diverse game in terms of player variety. You don't want the same team coming up every time on Twitter. You just see the same team over and over and over again, the template team. You want people to look at players and say, not many people have him, but I think he could do well, and he's at a good price where I potentially could get a bargain for him. So that's what you're kind of looking for. Jamie Vardy had a very good season last season. It was 10.5 million, but did have his injury problem, so I expect a slight price decrease to 10 million. Drop him down to 9.5. Make him similar to Lukaku. Make him similar to Cristiano Ronaldo. Give us a choice there. Make it something to where we can say, hey, look, we didn't consider him at all basically last season, even though he did well at points until the very end of the season when Leicester had like doubles. Give us a price right off the bat where we can say, hey, look, if Leicester have some some really good fixtures, we can go in and pick him. Or if Leicester look good, we can at least say, oh, well, we were thinking about him at the beginning of the season. Maybe we go at him right off the bat. I think Leicester played Brentford on the opening game week of the season, so I can't remember how good Leicester's fixtures are offhand because we only kind of quickly went through them over on the video. But Leicester could be an interesting team if they improve the defense, which could help out Vardy. But Vardy could also see some rotation, which is why I put the likes of Daka and Iheanacho as backups. Make them way less. Make them much cheaper. Make them more of a kind of consideration to say, if Vardy does get injured, we have cheaper alternatives up front. A lot of people are going to go for the likes of Maddison or Barnes, who are going to be 0.5 or 1 million more than their forward counterparts. That's kind of the main goal of what I've set at here. If a midfielder 7.5 million, the forward on the same team should be $500,000 to $1 million less than that player. That's strictly because they score less points, and we're seeing more and more midfielders hog up more and more of the FPL points because they're getting more and more involved in positions where normally forwards would in seasons gone by. And that's due to the fact that fullbacks are more involved, the wide players tuck in, the forward drops off to bulk out the midfield, and then you see the wide players like Mane and Salah, who line up as a left and right winger in the formation of 4-3-3, are more involved in the central part of the goal, and you see like Firmino and Jota drop off, occasionally getting in the box as well. So get these guys down in price. Same with Mopay and Welbeck. Make them 6 million. They don't need to be 6.5 million. Whatever new Brighton forward that comes in, if they do get one, maybe make them 6.5 million. But 6 million for Mopay and Welbeck, they shouldn't be any more than that. I wouldn't think, the least to start off with. Jimenez, he wasn't great last season. Drop him down by 1 million. Make him think, oh, well, Wolves have some decent fixtures. Let's reconsider Jimenez because his price looks to be pretty good. Callum Wilson, same price as the likes of Antonio, 7 million. If you're going to look for a midfielder who's at the 7.5 million mark, okay, do I pay the extra 0.5 to get that player in, or do I go for a forward that's slightly cheaper but could be as good a value? These are the kind of decisions I want to put in the game, which we don't see currently with the current price points of forwards. Chris Wood and Dwight Gale being 1 million less than each other respectively, and 1 million less from Wilson as well, just because they are backups. Mateta, Benteke, and Edward, since they all can play basically at any given time, make them all 6 million, make them all universal. I think that just is the fairest way to do it for mass rotation like that. Maybe if we have the inkling that Mateta is going to be the guy, then make him 6.5 maybe, but even still, maybe even make it more interesting. Maybe make Benteke and Edward 5.5 million and make Mateta 6 million. That might be a bit more enticing. Ivan Toney, I think 6.5 million is a fair price for him. I think he should stay there. Ings and Watkins, I think you could drop them down to 7 million, especially the likes of Danny Ings, who was kind of in and out of the team. The Watkins just wasn't, at 7.5 million, just still wasn't great, to be honest, all things considered. I think 7 million is a fair price. Put them in the same bracket as Wilson and Antonio. Similar price points for different teams of similar-ish skill level when they play well, or similar-ish like points output level, not necessarily skill level, because you would think that, you know, maybe Wilson's a better finisher than Watkins and Ings and Antonio, but Antonio's faster than all three of them. You know, that's a whole different story to talk about. But in terms of what they could do in FPL, I think they should be around that similar price point. That's 7 million. Adams and Armstrong as well from Southampton. Southampton did not have a great season last season. Adams came in at 7 million. Drop him way down. Southampton weren't great last season. Put him down to 6 million. I don't want to see him at 6.5. I don't want to see him back at 7 million. Put him at 6 million where we can at least say, okay, well, the promotional strikers are a similar price point. Southampton was potentially looking at a relegation fight had, you know, a few other teams not been drastically worse than them. Make it so that we can look at them and say, you know, Southampton have this good run of fixtures. Adams looks to be a nice cheap forward that I can at least put on my bench. Worst case scenario, pay that extra 1.5 million from a dud player, and then you can still have those options there available. Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin, they should both be the same price, I think, personally. No matter who takes penalties or not, whether Richarlison leaves or not is a completely different story. I think Everton as a team were not great at all, and I think both of them should be around, again, the 7 million mark. And lastly, Patrick Bamford. Injury woes, Leeds aren't a great team. Drop Bamford way down to 6.5 million. I mean, you could even be tempted to put him back to his original price, which was 5.5 million when he first came into FPL and had that really good season. And then last season, he was very injury prone. But across the board, you can see that I want to put the forwards down a lot. I think Bamford will probably come in at 7 million. But across the board, I want all the forwards to come down drastically. And by drastically, I mean the whole structure of forwards price points need to come down. We need to set the ceiling much less than the premium midfielders. So as we saw, Erling Haaland 10.5 million, De Bruyne was 11 million, Son was 12 million, Kane was 10.5 million. Ronaldo was 10 million. He's probably the only one, probably over the likes of Bruno Fernandes, who I would put slightly higher, just because it's Ronaldo, basically, and that's kind of how United played. It's like if Ronaldo didn't score, nobody scored, whereas the likes of Kane and Son can both easily score as many points as one another. Same for Haaland and De Bruyne potentially, and same for the likes of Salah and Mane, but Salah had more pens in the play, went through him a little bit more. So for the forwards, they should be cheaper. I really want to stress, I don't want to see Kane come in at like 12 million, Haaland at 12 million. If Son comes in at 11.5, you're just going to pick Son. You're just going to pick Son because he's going to be better than Kane, unless he has, you know, some torrid season where he's off form or he's not being picked or something like basically out of FPL control. Haaland should come in at a good price, but he shouldn't be this 12 million mark. He's coming from the Bundesliga. He's never played in the Premier League before. Lukaku came in 11.5, and I thought that that was probably still too expensive because forwards just in general don't output as many points as what they used to. It's not the days of old where, you know, you have your Drogbas, your Shearers, your Van Persies, your Agueros, these sorts of players where you know they were going to bang goal after goal after goal, get 20 plus Premier League goals a season. That's just, those days are fairly numbered. Haaland can maybe resurrect that. Kane can maybe have a good season again and you know, compete on that level. But you're seeing the likes of, you know, Bruno Fernandes, Kevin De Bruyne, Mo Salah, Sadio Mane, these sorts of players who are midfielders or wide attackers that are getting in the Golden Boot race. I mean, Son technically played left wing in a 4-3-3, or a 3-4-3, sorry, and he was tied Golden Boot winner. Same with Salah. Salah played on the right in a 4-3-3 and was effectively playing as a striker most of the time. But based on how FPL position players, and this is another thing I wanted to kind of bring up at the very end here, the way FPL position players is if on a 4-3-3, if you line up in one of the central three roles, you are a midfielder. If you are the right-sided or left-sided attacker, you are also a midfielder. If you line up through the middle, you are forward. Now, if you're going to change Salah and make him a forward in FPL, you have to do that for every other player that plays out on the left and right of their respective teams. So that means Mahrez becomes a forward. That means Jesus becomes a forward, even if they were considering putting him as a midfielder this season. That means Foden becomes a forward, and then you're just going to have this drought of just players where there's just only like proper central midfielders, like number 10s and like DMs all in the central midfield role, and then you're just going to have a surplus of forwards where you only have 3 spots for them, and then it's just going to make the game so lopsided, and it's going to be really, really weird. What they need to do is just make the forwards more appealing, keep the players, keep the way that they currently have positions set out, and keep those players in those roles. Just adjust the prices to make it more fitting to the new style of how teams play football. The wide attackers are more central, which means they're more involved in the play. You can keep them as midfielders, just make them more expensive than their forward counterparts, and then it should be fine and lower the cost of forwards overall. So that's it for the price predictions. We will see how they go. I expect some price reveals sometime this week, the week of the 21st of June. If there are any that come out, I'll do them in batches of like 2 or 3 days or something like that. If we can do that. And probably FPL will probably be launched within the next week or 2, I expect. And we will go live for that as well over on Twitch. So if you aren't following over there as well as over on Twitter, we'll be retweeting any information that we do get. So make sure to check that all out. And we will be back as soon as we get the latest and greatest for the next FPL season. Now, without further ado, you can check out our sponsors for the video. Yeah, during the regular season, it's £25 for the membership, and that lasts the entire year. And during the off season, they give a 20% discount. But if you have missed that discount, fear not, you can still get the membership for £25, and it's fantastic. You can see the membership area just behind me. You have a bunch of different stats that you can use, powered by Opta stats, and create your own custom tables. You have the Rate My Team tool, you have the season ticker, player comparison tools, a whole array of things that you can use to help elevate your FPL game. So use the link down in the description below so that you can get access to these exclusive tools to help elevate your FPL game. Sign up now. This video is brought to you by Manscaped, the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped have just launched their 4th-generation trimmer, the Lawnmower 4.0, alongside their Performance Package 4.0, which also includes the Weed Whacker hair and nose trimmer for those pesky little hairs that are getting out of hand, the Crop Preserver for anti-chafing to make sure that you are as relaxed at all times, the Crop Reviver for maximum conditioning and toning to make sure your jewels are as buff as possible, disposable shaving mats, as well as the premier travel bag for your on-the-go grooming, and lastly the anti-chafing boxers, which I can personally say are extremely comfortable and keep you cool under the highest amount of pressure. What I found the most impressive is that the Lawnmower 4.0 features ceramic cutting-edge blades to reduce grooming accidents thanks to their advanced skin-safe technology, so you can now have that added security when venturing into uncharted territories. The upgraded trimmer also includes a multi-function on and off switch that can engage a travel lock, and also when you are venturing into those uncharted territories, it has the ability for a LED, a 400K LED, a very strong light that you can switch on and off so you can get that more precise shave. So make sure to join over 4 million men who trust in Manscaped with this exclusive offer, 20% off and free worldwide shipping, using the code FLAME20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com using the code FLAME20. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. And that is going to do it for our price prediction series and for the forwards. Now you can see the whole spectrum and you can see how I would kind of scale things back a bit on the forwards as well as on the goalkeepers, as well as boosting the prices of the fullbacks and midfielders generally, but giving a much more balanced game, giving more options, which is basically the goal of what I tried to do here as well. But we'll see what FPL does, and by the time this video comes out, which will be Monday the 21st, there may already be price reveals from other teams that have been already put out. If you haven't done so already, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe channel if you're new or haven't done so already. It greatly helps out the channel, as well as turn those notification bells on so that you can get the content as soon as it is readily available. Drop us a follow over on Twitter so that you can keep up to date with any and all FPL news, from price changes to injury news, as well as summer transfer news and anything in between. As well as give us a follow over on Twitch so that you can see us live this season for our preview and deadline streams, as well as our FPL Reacts stream. When the game is launched, we will be going live that evening for probably an extended stream, going over everything. And we'll probably be referencing back to this table and seeing like the percentage of how much I got right and how much I got wrong. Did I get, FPL's prices right? Did they take my strategy? Did they go towards the one that I thought they were going to? We'll go through all those different variables, and we'll probably do a draft as per normal on stream, as well as check out Manscaped down in the description, as well as Fantasy Football Scout. Both links are down in the description. They are partners for us and have been over the last FPL season, so make sure to check them out as well. Thank you all for watching, and until the next one, take care.